I'm on, or maybe I'm frozen.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, or morning if you've just ticked over in some of our other states throughout Australia. We're very excited for you to be joining us today for our fantastic webinar. The team at Plan Tracker, myself and Sarah, and also the team from GIFT, which is Get Your Future Together in Victoria. So we've got Nat and Catherine joining us here today. Just while we're waiting for everyone to connect with us and sort out their connection issues. If you can't hear us or for whatever reason, you can message me in the chat box. I'll be moderating there today. But what I thought we might do just while we wait for everyone to jump on, if you're grabbing a cuppa or getting your lunch ready and finding a comfy spot, is we might just go around and introduce you to each of our presenters. So we might start with the team from GIFT, and we might start with Catherine, who I can see has got her video feed on here with us live. So Catherine, do you just want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and what you're looking forward to sharing with us most today.
Sure. So my name's Catherine. I'm an occupational therapist, and Natalie and I started our business a couple of years ago, really looking at kind of life skills coaching and how we support people with disabilities and their families to actually live life really well. So that's kind of what we do, and we're really excited, I guess, today to present on what you need to think about when you're thinking about support continuity in this time, which is pretty bizarre for all of us. So, yeah, that's kind of what we're really excited about.
Fantastic. That's really great to hear. And I might pass over to you next, Sarah. Would you like to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit more about what you're looking forward to sharing with everyone today?
Yeah, thanks, Mel. Hi, everyone. So there is my name, as I was introduced, and I'm community engagement with the Plan Tracker team. And I think predominantly right now, I think I really want to talk to everyone about stepping into their lived experience and really taking hold of that and really understanding what your lived experience is, because that's going to help you make really good decisions and be confident in your decision-making process during this time. There are so many uncertainties, there are so many unknowns, but your lived experience of what type of supports are really important for you and what ways that you might need to adjust things to deliver support to yourself, your family member. That's something that we all sort of, know inside of us. And so that's the kind of conversation I'm keen to have today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think, Nat, we're still waiting on Nat to jump in. What we might do for everyone is I might just run through what we're going through in the webinar today. If Nat jumps in and gets that connection sorted, we'll do an introduction. If not, Nat, we'll invite you to introduce yourself a little bit later in the webinar. So once again, thank you so much. And everyone who is busily jumping in. Sarah, do you mind just grabbing that at the door? Thank you. Sorry, everyone's always ringing doorbells when you try and go on live events. So thank you, everyone. We're all jumping in. We're saying where we're from. We've got a few from Victoria, WA. Welcome, welcome. We've got more from Sydney. I know we've got some Central Coast names in there I recognise as well. So today's webinar, once again, our topic is your COVID-19 NDIS plan in action. So what we're going to be going through is reshaping the way you think about implementing your plan in response to the current coronavirus or COVID-19. So they're two names for the same pandemic that's going around at the moment. And that's really what's in restrictions that have been placed on individuals and the society as a whole. So throughout Australia, there's definitely a lot of restrictions being placed, but we're going to talk about how you can really think about implementing your NDIS plan during this time. I know we're going to be going through what counts as essential supports and services and what might not actually count that way. But we've got lots of resources from both teams to be sharing. Where we're going to get started is actually with some of the recent NDIS changes as well. So we'll be going through what's changed, how that might impact you. And we'll also be looking at other things such as, excuse me, whilst I just grab our notes here. We've got lots of chat things that I'm reading at the moment. Welcome from the Northern Rivers. We've got some from Darwin as well. So NT, anyone else in NT, welcome. Let's jump in over here. Alrighty. We'll also be going through what happens when your plan comes to an end. So is my plan automatically extended? I will give you a quick preview. Yes, it is, but we'll be going through that in detail and also looking at what happens for your plan reviews or if you've got questions and how to get those addressed through the NDIS formal channels and those sorts of things. So what we might do is I'm just waiting for Sarah to rejoin us back in the office here. So Nat, have we got you on an audio connection as yet?
Yes, I'm definitely here, but I still can't figure out my video, so I'm sorry.
That's all right. Welcome to live events, everyone. This definitely happens, and I think no one is spared. So Nat is our lovely, she's got the lovely short bob of the hair, if anyone can see her profile. That's why we do profile images. So Nat, do you want to verbally introduce yourself, and then we hope to get you on the video feed soon?
Sure. So my name is Natalie. I'm an occupational therapist as well, and as Catherine mentioned, I'm the other co-founder of Get Your Future Together. I'm just really looking forward to chatting with everyone today about, again, continuity planning. What are the things that we need to consider during this period as kind of a holding pattern while we wait to kind of come out of this COVID-19 crisis, and how to get back on track once it's over.
Oh, I think we've just lost Nat's audio feed once again. Oh, no. That's perfectly fine. Nat, are you coming back in with us? We've just lost you there. So,
okay.
Everyone's time, I know your time is valuable. I know some of you are still working, some unfortunately might not be working at this time, and our hearts are with you if you have lost employment. But what we're definitely going to be focusing on today is the positives of implementing your plan during this time, and really how you can think about that. So, Catherine, given that you're with me, we might jump in. I'm just going to grab our slides up for you. Let's jump across here. So I'm just going to pop these slides up in the chat box, everyone. You just want to let me know if you can see those slides now. Just give me a thumbs up or a yes, and we'll jump straight into today's content for you all. Here we go. Alrighty, so I'm getting a few private yeses. All right. We might jump in then, Catherine. So let me go. Michelle, thank you for confirming, and Marguerite, lovely to have you both. And come on, everyone, Leah, great, fantastic. All right, so let's jump in. We're going to get started, as I mentioned earlier, with our COVID-19 updates and the updates from the NDIS. So one thing that's really important when you're thinking about where to get information from is to find reliable and trusted sources. So there is a lot of noise on social media at the moment and on mass media outlets, and it can be confusing, and it can also be a little misleading. So to take that confusion out and to give everyone a lot of certainty around this, some trusted sources that you might like to be referring to, and when Sarah's ready, she'll jump in to expand on some of these. The NDIS resource that we recommend is going to ndis.gov.au/coronavirus. There is a link if you only get to ndis.gov.au. It's linked right at the top of their webpage, and it'll take you into all of their resources, whether you are a provider or a participant or caring for a loved one. There is plenty of resources on there. And in a moment, I'll be popping up an FAQ page that we recommend bookmarking in your browser so that you can keep informed with all of those updates. The NDA are actually updating that most days. So they're making changes to things. They're popping in answers to regular questions and all of those sorts of things. Now, just on the flip side of this, if you're looking for coronavirus-specific information related to health and what the government is doing, health.gov.au or heading to australia.gov.au, they are the two formal sources of information. You will, in each of your individual states, also find state-specific. So if you look up, for example, there's New South Wales Health. If you're in WA, there's WA Health and those sorts of things. So if you search for coronavirus Western Australia, you're going to get the state-specific resources. That'll have recent changes from your Premier in your state as to what's going on for you specifically. But Australia-wide, these are the best resources to have. What I will pop up for you now as well, if anyone requires this for themselves or for a loved one or for any of your participants, the Growing Space put together a fantastic, easy English version of explaining what coronavirus is to a participant on the NDIS. So I'll pop that up in the chat box for everyone now. You should see that appear in just a second if you give me 2 secs. All right. So this resource, again, it's downloaded from the Growing Space website. Full credit to them. We are not the authors. We just want to share this valuable resource with you all. Sarah, I'd invite you to jump in now to talk a bit more about that FAQ page on the NDIS and what's so valuable about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the most important thing to remember is that the all the questions are broken up into for providers, for participants, for using your plan, for support workers. Basically, because there's so many FAQs now, it's really growing by the day, you can narrow it down to the subject or the particular subject you're looking for. Remember, it's an expandable menu, so you'll go through and you'll see the individual question, and then you just need to click on the plus to expand it out to read the answer. what the agency has begun to do is when they've been updated or added, they've to preface or at the beginning of the question actually write the date. So now you sort of can get into a system of scanning down. If you're regularly in there every couple of days or whatever, you could go down, you can see the dates in which they've been updated and then open that and read it. There are some small things going on all the time. We encourage you to bookmark that page when you've got a chance. Go back and regularly look at it. And as Mel mentioned, Sam's page at the Growing Space, she's certainly made a big commitment to sharing all the latest information with communities. So we definitely encourage you to follow her Facebook page.
Sarah, I'm just going to re-invite you just to disconnect and reconnect your audio. Sorry to everyone, there seems to be a little bit of connection issues going on here. Just to reiterate what Sarah was saying there, so the FAQ page on the NDIS website, what I'll do, I'll pop up a link for where you can find all of the coronavirus information in the chat box now for everyone. So that'll just be a URL link that you can follow to the NDIS website. The FAQ information is broken up, just to repeat what Sarah was saying, into information that's relevant for providers and also relevant for participants on the NDIS. So things like, can I spend funding on, which we're going to get to a little bit later in the webinar. And I know Catherine and the team at GIFT are really keen to have a chat about that as well, as to what is an essential supportive service at the moment. So those sorts of things. Sarah, can we just retest your audio?
Yeah, fine. As now.
Okay, we've still got a little bit of interference there. What we might do for everyone is, if you've got questions regarding the FAQ, and Catherine, you're most welcome for that resource. We'll keep sharing some more fantastic resources as we go along. The FAQ page, what I'm going to be doing following this webinar, you'll receive a fantastic email with all of these resources. So if you're trying to follow the links along, or you download something and you can't find where you've placed it, we will send all of these to you. So don't feel like you're going to miss out. If you've got questions, pop them in the chat box as we go along. We're going to be doing a Q&A at the end. But what we might do is, let's jump into some of, we're going to go forward. There we go. So some of the changes and things that we're thinking about when it comes to NDIS. So there's obviously, I'm just wondering where my slide's gone. We're doing it the wrong way around. We're going to jump ahead too, because I've done the slides the wrong way around. So NDIS updates, what's changed? So when we look at the fact page on the NDIS, some of the key takeaways that I'd love for you all to have learnt from this is that there's now a priority home delivery service for groceries from a lot of the major retailers such as Coles and Woolworths. What we have been informed is they should be sending you out basically a code that allows you to do this home delivery service through their online shopping carts. If you're not receiving that code, you can contact the individual service provider such as Coles or Woolworths to inquire as to why you haven't received that yet. Although I'm sure, as you are aware, there are a lot of participants who are requiring access to these, so they're getting them out as quickly as they can. That's only been released in the past week. There's also been an update, which we're going to jump into in a bit more detail. And Catherine, I invite you, if you want to jump in on any of this as well. There's an automatic 12-month plan extension for all NDIS participants. So the reason that the NDIA has issued this is so that you can have continuity of service. So the automatic 12-month plan rollover or extension of your NDIS plan will be an extension to your core and capacity building budgets only. So it won't include any capital budgets that you had in your NDIS plan. So it's just your core and capacity building, and it will be rolled across to your new plan. Now, a lot of questions that came out of that announcement from the NDIA were definitely, what happens if I had a plan review scheduled? So we are now at the start of April. So if I had a plan review scheduled for mid-April and I said, well, they just rolled my plan across, do I still get to have my review? The answer is yes. The NDIA have advised us that you will be still getting your plan review. It just, the format might look a little different. So the NDIA, where possible, are inviting participants to have that plan review over the phone or online. They do have some offices, not all, and you will need to check with your local office to see if they are open and taking face-to-face appointments. Obviously, as a result of coronavirus or COVID-19, and for the protection and safety of yourselves, your loved ones, and also for the NDIA staff, they are requesting where possible to do them virtually just to minimise the health and safety risks. But there are, as I mentioned, some offices still offering face-to-face with social distancing observed. So if you're wanting a face-to-face, you can definitely request that through your local area coordinator or LAC. But the other side of this is during that plan review. So if you've got a plan review coming up or your plan was rolled over but you wanted to have one, reach out to your LAC. They're your point of contact to request these plan reviews and organise in what format that takes place, whether it's face-to-face, over the phone or online. But you can also have a discussion about having this rollover of funds for up to 24 months. So that's going to give you continuity of service for a much longer period of time. But it's definitely something that Catherine and I will talk about a little bit later on in terms of how do we think about managing our funding across 24 months if that's something that we're opting to do. One of the other big changes that we had recently, which we're all very excited about, is there's now support coordination funding included under your core funding budgets. So previously you would have had to have the support coordination budget category included in your NDIS plan. You will now see that included. The line items that were previously in a separate budget are now replicated into the core support. So it's giving everyone access. I'd love to know if anyone has had access to that already through their core funding and how you're finding that, or if there's any roadblocks for you. So pop them in the chat. As I said, while I'm talking, I can't chat back to you at the same time generally, but we will be going through all of these during the Q&A. So please keep the questions coming. I can see there's a lot of them flowing in at the moment. So my apologies for not doing 2 things or 3 things at once. The other 2 that I want to go through as well is just COVID-19 loading. So what that is for certain services, the NDIA is now permitting the service providers to charge 10% on top of the regular service fee for those particular services. And that's effective as of March 25th, 2020. So if you've received a service before March 25 and your provider's charging loading, they can't be doing that. So they can't add the loading before March 25, but they can add it moving forward. And they should have notified you of this as well. Some providers will have it built into their service agreements that you can actually, they can automatically change in line with NDIA changes. Others will notify you that there's an adjustment to your service agreement to allow for this loading. So if you're running into any issues there, feel free to reach out. We're happy to answer any questions on those. And the final big change that we've seen recently is cancellation policies. So cancellations under the NDIA guidelines, if you cancel a service within 10 days, I believe it is, and Sarah, correct me if that's wrong. If you cancel a service, so within 10 working days, if you cancel the service, the provider can charge 100% of the fee. Now, if the provider cancels the service within any period of time before delivering it to you, so say they call you up and you've got a service tomorrow and they've said, I'm really sorry, I can't provide that service, I don't have a worker, they cannot charge you for the service that they cancel. They can only charge you if you cancel the service within that 10-day notice period. So very good, important things to note there. And let's jump on through. Oh, we're going to go back. Sorry, my slides are doing disorderly things for a Wednesday. So let's go back to our other slide. Sarah, I'm going to hand across to you if your audio is nice and stable there. So we want to talk about how can I use my funding? And I'll invite you to have that conversation with Catherine, and I'm going to jump into that chat box and start answering some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mel. Thank you so much. So how's my audio, Catherine? Can you hear me okay?
You're in and out a little bit.
In and out, okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's a bit better. Yep.
That's a bit better? Okay. So let's just start with the funding that you've currently got. You find the circumstances are different. The first and foremost thing people are finding is that basic service. So whether that's a therapeutic service or some sort of capacity building service or even support worker service, which is face-to-face, and now we're all looking at online or virtual services. So that really changed the nature of how the support is delivered and also what types of things can be done online. I think from my own experience supporting my own children over virtual therapeutic supports, the first piece of feedback or advice to you would be just try things out. Anything, don't feel like you have to make a type of...
All right, Sarah, I'm very sorry to interrupt you there. We're just going to jump back in. I might actually invite you to come on in and join me in a moment in this room. We're going to double up, I think, to continue this webinar. We're just having a few audio issues there, so we'll get that sorted for everyone. Catherine, if you're still there with me, I think you've just disappeared on me. Look, I might continue this for everyone. So while we're at it, this is what live webinars are about. And I can hear Nat. So hi, Nat. Thanks for joining with me. Alrighty. So thinking about, I'm just going to recap for anyone who didn't hear that. So how can I use my funding? Have your needs and circumstances changed? So if you've been impacted by COVID-19 in terms of maybe you've moved out of independent living and living back at home and things like that, or you're no longer able to go out due to health restrictions or government restrictions that have been placed in your community, that definitely is a circumstantial change. Other things to be thinking about is, do you need additional supports during this time? So first of all, before I continue on that line, a medical disclaimer, we are not a medical practitioner and we are in no way giving medical advice with this next one, but additional supports may be something like mental health supports during this time. So do you need additional support workers to come in? Do you need additional sessions with a psychologist? All of those sorts of things definitely count as additional supports to help you during this time. And mental health is a priority of the government to protect at this time for everyone in the community, not just for NDIS participants. So all of those sorts of things. I'm going to just verbally invite Nat and Catherine to rejoin me when you can so that I can sort out some audio things for Sarah here. But what we're going to do is continue on with the big thing, and I'm just going to pop a resource up for everyone, so feel free. We're going to switch this across for you. We're going to have a look together at Participant Guidebook 3 from the NDIA. So this is an NDIA resource. On page 9, there is 7 questions that step you through around, initially it was what we all may have known as a reasonable and necessary support. That terminology has been a bit quashed on the NDIA kind of language terms. So this is around thinking, is a support, is it safe? Is it necessary for me to engage this support? Is this a support that is a requirement because of my disability, or is this an everyday support? So I know there's lots of discussions that we've had, and once again, there's a great resource on the growing space from Sam Payor, and what can I buy with my funding? And it talks about things like a laptop. So if you're using a laptop for schooling, that's actually a need that every family would have, versus if you're just using it for a disability. There's obviously going to be exceptions to every rule, and it is a case-by-case basis. Other things, though, that you might think about is, do I need a tablet and those sorts of things? If you're thinking about a low-cost tablet to access, say, a therapist, then that's something to have a discussion with, either with your providers if you're agency managed. If you're self-managing, you can talk to your LAC. If you're plan managed, call your plan manager and ask them, does that fit in with the goals in your plan so you continue your service? So they're things to have a think about discussing. As I said, as a plan manager at Plan Tracker, we definitely have a lot of those discussions, and it is a case-by-case basis. So it's not a hard and fast rule for everyone, but it is a changing landscape during COVID-19. So we want you all to be thinking about supports and services that are disability specific, and not just because you might need an access to something. If that's something that every other family would be trying to use, again, I'll come back to that example of a laptop for schooling, then that's definitely something to think, okay, that's a mainstream requirement that every family has versus something that I need because of my disability to access my providers. So a tablet would be more likely, but once again, have a chat with the relevant body, whether it's your LAC, your plan manager, or your provider, or an OT, and those sorts of roles. So Nat, do you have any comments on that, just to build upon?
No, not really, actually. I think and I'll go into this a little bit as well in a second, but it really is about thinking during this period about what your essential needs are to get you through this kind of holding period, and then thinking about how that's going to help you then get back on track again once we're out of it. So, yeah,
fantastic.
I think you've covered everything.
Lovely. Alrighty. And so everyone should have that resource. If you don't, you can head across to the NDIA website. Again, once again, we will be sharing all of these resources in a nice email for you, so you can download absolutely everything, have a read through it, have a cup of tea, and just let the information sink in. And of course, if you've got questions, reach out to us. The team at Plan Tracker, the team at Gift, we're more than happy to help you all try and navigate through these times. So some of the other things to be thinking about when the question poses, or if someone asks you, is how can I use my funding, particularly for support coordinators, is do you have funding available for these supports? So if you're on your current plan and it hasn't rolled across to your new plan, you can't spend the new plan's funding right now. So if my plan doesn't start until April 15th for my next new one that's automatically extended, I can't go and buy supports with that new plan's funding when I'm still in the current plan dates. So you can't pre-purchase from that new plan. That's definitely something to think about. If you're not sure where your funding is up to, If you're self-managed, you can log in, providing you're up to date with processing all of your claims on your NDIA portal. So that's a portal that you process claims through from the NDIS. If you're plan managed, if you're with Plan Tracker, you'll have access to the Plan Tracker app, so you can track where your funding's up to, or you're more than welcome to pop us an email or give us a call. And obviously, if you're agency managed, you can just check in with the providers, but you should be able to also log into your portal to see where that funding's up to, providing those providers are up to date with all of their invoice processing on your behalf. So they're great things to think about. Points of contact, I know I've mentioned a lot of these for this slide already. Your local area coordinator is a great person to contact and keep in touch with, especially during this time if you've got questions, whether they're about running out of a plan review forward, whether they're about, can I purchase this if you don't have other support such as a plan manager or a support coordinator. Again, there is now support coordination included in your core budget. So if you've got core funding available, you may be able to get some minimal hours with a support coordinator to access some guidance around different supports and services, how to engage them, and building yourself what I like to call a COVID-19 support team, so that you can help support yourself during this time with minimal risk and exposure. So that's something we're definitely going to be going through. And once again, a plan manager also very helpful for you in this time in terms of flexibility. We'll be talking about that a little bit later for your funding. And let's jump on through. So Nat, you're still with me. We're going to jump this because I did this. I'm going to hand across to Nat to have a chat about if you've got any audio issues, anyone hearing Nat, please let me know in the chat box and I'll jump back in. What we're going to be talking about next is what supports do I need now? So Nat, do you want to just give us a brief overview and then we'll jump into those essential versus non-essential?
Sure. So thinking about what supports do I need now, it's with so many changes that have happened within the funding process, but also in terms of staffing. It's really important to be able to identify what a person's essential support needs are and how to prioritise them during this period of disruption. So, but the first question, I guess, is for most people, how do you even identify what is an essential versus a non-essential, but and still important need? One way we might think about this is to break down the essential component into smaller subheadings. So thinking about personal care needs, physical care, mental health, and routine, and how those needs are currently being met, and how will they be met if circumstances changes. What we're trying to really focus on in this case is what needs to be put in place at a bare minimum to maintain quality of life until such a time where growth and development opportunities and access to services can resume. Now, as I think Catherine mentioned earlier, we have created a resource that you'll have access to at the end of the event, which outlines really what essential supports encompass in this case. So thinking then about COVID-19 and what is essential, most people will have, if not everyone, will have experienced some form of housing or accommodation changes. We're also looking at changes to staffing and support work and changes to access to services. So figuring out how to maintain these essential supports really comes down to now shifting your focus on what kind of training and upskilling does everyone, including myself and my support team, need. This might be things around access to computers, iPads, phones, any kind of devices to enable communication, or other things really. It's also about understanding what services can continue in this environment when we are being quarantined versus thinking about how useful they are in this period of time as well. So for some, getting access to a gym is obviously not going to be available to them, but are we still able to access personal trainers during this time, or exercise physiologists or physiotherapists who can do online video sessions? And last but not least, it's obviously thinking about what will need to be put on hold for the moment and resume once we get out of this crisis period. Can I still be here? I'm just going to check that I'm still...
Yes, we certainly can still hear you, Nat. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Now, the other thing to consider during this period is really what is the overall goal and priority. And there is going to be a slight shift. So what we're really moving from is what do I need to live well and all the supports that I need in place for that to something more along the lines of what do I need to live well, knowing that some of the things that I'll need to access and how I access them will change. The other main priority of this period is around maintaining our physical and mental health so that we reduce the need for critical medical care. And really, this is, again, about reducing, and much like the greater community, this is about reducing contact with the system that is currently and will continue to be under a lot of pressure. But accessing critical care will be inevitable for some. So being prepared for this is important. And again, just referencing the resource that we've provided, this will help to identify and relay essential health and support needs to services should critical support be needed. So, and
Nat, do you mind if I just jump in and check just
Yes.
for the resource there? Because I know we've got two fantastic resources to share with everyone from the team at GIFT. Is it your support continuity planning or the participant profile that you'd like shared at the moment?
so that's a participant profile.
Fantastic. So everyone, that'll be up in the chat box in a second.
Yeah. So really the participant profile, we've outlined from an essential needs perspective and also from a medical perspective, the kind of information that would need to be relayed to any service or even new staff that are being onboarded to the team. Just the kind of information that they need to know about. And yes, really that's about it. So thinking broadly, so in terms of using this document to help continuity care planning outside of this, it really helps to then ensure that quality of life is maintained over this period and that we reduce any potential for loss in function as well, so that once we get out of COVID, we're able to resume services and supports, hopefully, as we have been previously.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. And of course, if anyone's got any questions, as I said, feel free to keep popping them in. Welcome back, Catherine. I know we're having some essential network issues throughout the country today, it would seem, but that's perfectly fine. This is all about, and we're so happy to have everyone joining us, whether you're a presenter or attending, and asking lots of questions. I know there's heaps going on in there. Sarah's just working on reconnecting so she can answer some of those as we go along, but we will be going through them during the Q&A. So what we might do is let's jump across then and talk about building your unique team. And Catherine, do you want to speak a little bit to some of the roles that you see, obviously in your role with GIFT, that are essential for your participants?
Sure. So I think what we see as being essential at the moment, particularly for participants who might have a chronic medical condition and they're trying to, I guess, minimise the risk to themselves and to their workers. We're really seeing people, I guess, using fewer essential support workers where needed and giving them potentially more hours. We're also seeing lots of allied health actually dialing in or doing Zoom sessions and really essential services for many of the people that we see are really being focused on personal care. And also, you know, there are many things that some of our people actually need, like a support person to help them to kind of maintain their physical health. And that might be through things like that might be through things like stretching or being able to support someone to stay active, even though they're not able to get out and about like they might be used to doing. So I think that there are, I think a really big part of essential support at the moment is actually a lot of participants are needing to rely on their family members. So all of us, I guess, are vulnerable at this particular time. So being able to think about not just the participant, but also family members, support workers who may also be vulnerable in this time, and what's going to be the best case scenario, and needing to revisit that as often as you need to revisit that, really. Yeah.
Fantastic. And look, I couldn't agree more. I know that there's been a lot of change of circumstances we touched on before in terms of if you're now supporting family members. I know we've got a few questions going on in the chat box there. Sorry, I was trying to catch up just on a few of those in terms of, is there any extra support for carers at the moment who now may have their loved ones with a disability who are at home with them 24/7 due to the restrictions? I know that if you've had a change of circumstance yourself and you're now a full-time carer, there are government payments available if that has changed. Catherine, are there any other things that a carer can be thinking about in terms of supporting themselves, not only their loved one with a disability during this time?
Yeah. So I know that some carer organisations are also offering online and phone-based support to carers. But I would also be, some of the work that we do is also about, in our support continuity planning, is about thinking through how much support can support workers be offering, because to try to ensure that the relationship between the family member and the person with a disability can be maintained as much as possible without the bulk of essential support falling back onto the family member or members. And so there obviously there are many people that are not used to receiving services through Zoom or on the phone. And so often people will revert back to someone they know really well or someone who just happens to be there. So being able to work with allied health or a support coordinator to try to put in place a little bit of a plan to know who to go to can be really useful as well. And being able to create a routine while usual routine is disrupted is really important, I think, in staying engaged, staying active and hopeful in this time. And also, I think, for the support team to take a little bit more responsibility for what's being provided, not just that falling back onto carers or family members.
I think we've just lost Catherine there. Oh, no. Oh, we're back. There we go, Catherine, you're back. Sorry, we just lost you just as you were talking about the support team's responsibility.
I think it's really important that, that the support team really can take as much responsibility as they can virtually, if that's how things may need to be, to make sure that the carer and family members are supported as much as the person with the disability. And that takes a lot of communication and a lot of coordination. And just like businesses are needing to constantly review where things are at in providing support, so do individuals. That needs to be constantly reviewed at this time as things change. So
fantastic.
Hope that helps.
Yeah, I think that's hugely valuable. And if anyone has any questions for Catherine around that, just pop them in the chat box. As I said, I'm banking questions now. I've just had a chance to catch up, Catherine, so thank you for having a chat with everyone.
No, that's all right.
Some of the essential members, just to everyone, especially if you're new to the NDIS or you just need a refresher, because there's a lot of information going on right now. Your best and most essential members of your team, your local area coordinator. So this is who you meet with, generally face-to-face, although as I did mention, it now is over the phone or online, wherever possible. The agency has requested that. That's who you meet with to do your planning meeting initially, and who generally in most circumstances will actually give you your first plan when it comes through. They're a great point of contact for you at the agency to get in touch with if you have questions or any issues with your plan. that's generally who you should go to for that. The next role, if you've got funding for this, and as we did mention very excitedly, there is now support coordination funding, not only in the support coordination budget, but also included in the core funding category. So if you don't have your support coordination budget in your plan, but you do have core funding, you now have flexibility to use some of that to purchase some support coordination hours with a support coordinator to go through things like helping you build that essential team. So Catherine, you touched on a lot of trying to build some planning around routine and those sorts of things. That is a fantastic thing that a support coordinator can help you with. So there's all of those sorts of things. We're going to touch on in a moment getting some more flexibility, but if you're already plan managing, then your plan manager is a great resource for you. If you're with Plan, obviously you're getting access to the app. We've got our beautiful customer care team on the phone, on chat, and on email, Monday to Friday during office hours. So your plan manager should be someone who is responsive to your requests and getting back to you. If you are having any struggles with that, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you with it. Other thing I want to touch on, which a lot of us think about having lots of support workers doing different things generally, like they might be helping us with community access or with our daily needs. Our core support worker team. So what that means basically is you might like to think about, and again, this is just our advice, it's not something that might work for everyone, but thinking about limiting your exposure to the potential exposure of coronavirus during this time by offering more hours to a smaller team of support workers. So they might be, you might have 4 or 5 that generally you would say were your super trusted support workers. So you're happy to give more hours to. You get along with them. You're happy to have them around. You're going to be seeing them a lot during these quarantine periods. So whilst we're on social distancing restrictions, picking members for your team, so that essential core support worker team who you're going to really be spending a lot of time with, but potentially offering them some more hours so that you're not seeing 10 people in a week, you're only seeing 5. That's just counterbalancing your exposure to potential health risks from this virus. So that's definitely something to think about. I am conscious of time with a few of the glitches here. And Sarah's in the chat box now, so I can see her going through a few of those questions for everyone. I want to move along to our flexibility, and I'm going to pop up another file in our chat box now for you all. So this is about managing your funding. You might have seen it from Plan Tracker before, but I think it's really valuable. It goes through the 3 styles. So if you're looking for more flexibility from your NDIS plan during this time, and you've been agency or self or plan, it doesn't matter which way you were, you can actually request a priority review through the NDIA. And what that will do is it does review the funding in your plan, but it also can change the way that your funding is managed. So the NDIA is urging people during this time, if you're looking for more flexibility, so for example, if your plan is agency managed and you're finding that your support providers can't provide support workers for you when you need them, then it's time to have a conversation with your local area coordinator about potentially changing the way your funding is managed to open up the scope of potential support workers that you can engage. So by doing something as simple as this of switching from agency to plan, for instance, you're going to get the flexibility without the admin. So you're going to get extra funding for a plan manager to basically do like NDIS bookkeeping for you. So they're going to manage all the funding, process the invoices and claims for you, and keep those records. So you'll be able to see transparency over where your budgets are up to, but you're not having to do all the admin. The NDIA is paying for a plan manager to do that. You get to choose who they are, but the flexibility from that is huge for you. So what that's going to do, and I know we've got quite a few self-managers here in the chat box, letting me know that you're self-managed for your plan, either for yourself or a loved one. So the flexibility that you get with self of using registered and non-registered providers, particularly during the Covid-19 outbreak at the moment, that is huge for a lot of families and individuals. So it is allowing you to self-employ. I know a few of you have mentioned that you're self-employing your workers. So that means simply a self-employed worker, for anyone who doesn't know, is they have to be someone with a registered ABN, and then you can negotiate the rate with them to provide support. If you're self-managed, you're not capped by price guide limits. If you're plan managed, depending on the service or support they are providing for you, you are just limited by the price guide maximums. Although, as we always say, negotiate with your providers, because the lower you can get that rate, as long as your support worker or the provider delivering the support worker is happy, then the further you're going to stretch your funding, especially during this time. And a lot of support workers I know, and Catherine, please feel free to jump in here, they're a lot of them are actually looking for what would you call it, confidence in knowing that they're going to have ongoing work during this time, and they're happy to negotiate with you in terms of providing support at a set rate that you agree on with them. Have you had that experience, Catherine?
Definitely. Yep.
Fantastic. All right. So there is that lovely cheat sheet. So the thing that's pictured here on the image is actually a printable for you all. So it's an A4 document. It just goes through who's responsible for claims and payments and those sorts of things and what the main differences are. Of course, if you've got any questions, Sarah and myself are most happy to answer them, whether it's on this webinar or offline. I will be reaching out to all of you personally. So please feel free just to let us know, and we'll answer as many of those questions for you as we can. And I'll also be popping up, which I might switch over now. I'm just going to pop up a lovely resource that we've got for our Connect, Learn and Support. So this has links to 2 different groups. We've got 2 Facebook groups that we run. One of them is mainly for participants and also for providers wanting to engage to see what the community is talking about at the moment. So that's our NDIS Plan and Self-Management community. It's a private Facebook group. You can post questions. If you don't want to post them as yourself and you want to remain anonymous, you just message one of the admins. Sarah and myself are also admins on the group, and we'll post it as an anonymous post for you in the group so that you can just watch the replies come in. We've also started a COVID-19 NDIS provider focus group for any of the providers and support coordinators. Those links are both in that PDF that should be in your chat box now. So feel free to jump on in and grab those. Catherine, we might jump across and start in Q&A. Yep. Are there any questions that you're getting at the moment, Catherine, just before I jump into the chat ones that we've got coming through that you'd really love to address for everyone?
Not right now. I might come back to you on that one, but not right now.
That's all good. All right. Now, I saw a really good one before, and I think it was Bronwyn who popped this one through. So thank you, Bronwyn, for this question. I know we get it a lot, and we're as eager as you to see this happen, but it's not in place just yet. So as of today, the agency hasn't allowed this. There isn't flexibility if you run out of your capacity building, say, for instance, a therapy budget. There isn't flexibility to use a core funding for a capacity building support as yet. We would equally love to see that happen for you, but the agency has not as yet given us guidance that that will happen. So we are keeping an eager ear out for everyone on that front. Hold on, I'm just going to grab our next question in. Let me just scroll on down here. Alrighty. Now, the other one I had and I wanted to go back to, I know we spoke about laptops and tablets and those sorts of things and whether they're an essential support service for yourself at the moment or a requirement to access therapy. Now, we get this a lot, and as I said, reach out to your LAC or to your plan manager, whoever, or your support coordinator, and they can help you escalate those inquiries to the relevant body depending on how your funding is managed. Something else we get, which I think is really relevant to think about, is can I borrow a device? Does someone in my household or in my neighborhood have a device that's just sitting there on a shelf? I know a lot of us may have access to a few devices, and we're happy to share the love around and let someone borrow it for a period of time. Or can I hire a device if you have capacity to go and do that? So those sorts of things, you don't necessarily have to be buying a device during this time to gain access. But as I said, definitely a conversation to have individually based on either your own or your loved one's needs with the relevant LAC or the plan manager during this time. So if anyone's with Plan Tracker, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to go through and have a look at your plan and work with you on that one. Let's have a look here. Alrighty, we've got a question from Dean. Hi, Dean. Thank you for joining us. So let me just have a read through. All right, so for any support coordinators, when the plan is extended, do you get a copy of the new plan with the new plan date? So when the plan is extended, the new plan should be sent out to the participant. I'm actually not sure. If you ask me straight off the bat, I don't know if they're sending it direct to the support coordinator at this stage. What I'd recommend doing is if your participant is coming up for their plan end date, and that is relevant for any families or participants who are joining us here as well. If your plan is coming towards your plan end date, and you haven't yet received a new plan, so if you've logged into the portal, if you have access to that, or you haven't received it in the post, contact your local area coordinator and just ask them if they know where your next plan is up to and if it's coming through. And you can also request if they share that with you. Generally, there is a restriction that they can only share it with a participant or nominee. So for support coordinators, keep in touch with your families. So whether that's with the participant or their nominee, just so that you know when their new plan comes in. They should just be able to forward that to you if they've received a digital copy, or they can let you know when it comes in. The best thing we recommend, obviously, for social distancing, if you get your plan in the post and you want to share it with your plan manager or your support coordinator, take photos of it, and then you can pop it in an email through to them. So that's a nice, healthy way to share it with them without having for anyone to touch the multiple bits of paper. So nice, easy ways to go through. Let's jump on in. I'm just going to mute myself for 2 seconds and invite Sarah to join me in here. Just give me 1 second, everyone.
I think, yeah.
Yes, you are. There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got a question that's come through directly to Sarah, just around what happens for a participant in terms of if they need to put a goal on hold during COVID-19, and what sort of your role with capacity building in that manner in terms of if they want to pop a specific goal on hold because it's not maybe safe to do during this time. Do you just want to talk to that a little bit? And I'm going to grab a few more of these. All right. I'm just going to keep going because I don't think Catherine can hear me there. All right. We might jump into another question and we'll come back around to that one. So we've got another question here around if I've got minimal funding in my CB daily budget, so that's therapy budget for anyone who doesn't know. Does the 12-month extension of my plan cover this? Yes. So CB or capacity building budgets are included alongside core budgets in the automatic 12-month plan extension for your NDIS plans. That is delivered straight from the agency. So any of your CB budgets, whether it's CB improved relationships, CB daily living, they will be automatically extended. You will receive the same amount in those budgets unless you talk to your LAC about shuffling buckets of funding around between your core and capacity building. That is a hot tip. You can definitely go and do that. But yeah, you did not hear that from me. So there we go. We'll move along. Catherine, can you hear me again?
You're in and out a little bit, but yes.
Okay, fantastic. Did you want to jump back to our question around placing a goal on hold in your plan and how you can build capacity during this time if you need to do that?
Sure. I mean, I think that's a really good question. I definitely think there will be, you know, in terms of thinking about essential needs, it's really important to get that bare minimum essential needs met. But there are going to be some goals that will be related to community and or social access, which may be really limited at the moment. And so I think what is reasonable to expect is that we do try to meet that potentially through capacity building supports in the parameters that we do have at the moment. And obviously much of that is restricted. But I don't, as far as I know anyway, I don't think that the NDIA are looking at kind of putting goals on hold. However, obviously, these are extenuating times. So I think for participants and family members, do what you can do. I think, you know, I think this time will be reflected in the future, and it will be understood that there will be some goals that will just not be able to be met in this time in the same way.
Fantastic. And look, I couldn't agree more with you there. It's not about a matter, and the NDA has said this, obviously each plan is looked at individually, but if you're not meeting the goals that you initially set out and the impact is COVID-19 that is restricting those, it's definitely something that will be taken into consideration during the plan review moving forward. The automatic plan extensions aren't plan reviewed in that manner. They're automatically rolled over to ensure you have continuation of supports and services during this time. So they're kind of two different rollovers going on there. So you can still have a plan review as well as have that automatic extension. If you go for plan review, that will replace the extended plan when the new plan comes in. So the same as if you requested an early plan review prior to all of the COVID-19 situation. When your new plan comes through following that review, the new plan will have a plan start date, and that will replace any existing plan that has been enforced. So I can probably rattle off a bunch of dates there, but I'm sure you all understand what I mean. So we might jump across. Now, we've got a new question, and Catherine or Sarah, I might invite you to jump in on this one. So Michelle's just asked if, hold on, let me just understand this question for you, Michelle. So if I'm agency managed and I'm looking to draw support coordination funding from my core category, what rate do I pay? Is it the normal COS rate or something else? So this is where negotiation definitely comes into place. There are set fees for support coordinators, and some will have set fees as an organisation or if they're an independent. But definitely during this time, what we're seeing is that in the core funding category with accessing support coordinators, some are taking this on as a consulting role. So they may be offering different rates to their normal services, but always open to negotiation. If you're agency managed, you'd have to access a registered NDIS provider of support coordination. If you're plan or self-managed, you have flexibility to use registered and non-registered. And Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong there on that. And I think Sarah's also answered this in the chat too. She's just letting me know. So I've got getting a thumbs up. That's nice and easy for everyone. So what we might do, I'm just jumping across. So we've got, thank you for the clarity. All right. Oh, Marguerite, you've answered one of our questions for us. Thank you so much. So the plans are going to be available in the portal, and you get a notification from MyGov when your new plan comes through. So Dean, I think that actually answers your question. So that's, Marguerite, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but that would be either for the nominee or the participant, depending on who has access there. They're getting alert through their MyGov portal. So they're going to be getting that alert, and that's definitely a time if you are getting a new plan through, that's when you want to be alerting your plan manager that you've got a new plan, or your support coordinator as well. So they're two very essential roles that need to know if you get a new plan, because they're going to help you implement, and they're also going to be processing funds from your new plan. So definitely important to keep them all involved in there. Let me just grab, I think we've got time for one more question. I'm just conscious of everyone. We will get back to any of these questions. Thank you, Marguerite, for confirming. Very appreciated there, and for helping us assist. Alrighty. Okay. So Bronwyn, just to clarify for you there, that alert is for, so you get an alert every time there's a new plan that comes into your MyGov NDIS portal where you log in there. So you should be getting an alert when you receive a new plan. The extended plans are going to look like a new plan. So they'll have a plan start and end date. They're not just tacked on to the end of your funding. So your existing plan ends at its end date, and your new extended plan will be an automatic rollover of your core and capacity building budgets only. And that will have a new plan start and end date. So it's as if you've gone through plan review, just without the review section. As I mentioned before, you can still go for review, have a chat with your local area coordinator if there is something that you're interested in. All right, let's just jump on over here. One last thing I just want to talk about with everyone, and I'm just going to stop these slides and jump back in here, and I'll just make myself big because everyone else is gone. There we go. All right, now there is a My Supports, My Choice tool on the Plan Tracker website. Now what this steps through is something we went through earlier, the 7 questions, and we've actually broken them up into 8 just to make it nice and easy for everyone. So in Participant Guidebook 3 from the NDIA, when you're thinking about purchasing a support or service, whether that is now and due to the impact of COVID-19 or any other time, you still need to be considering these 7 questions outlined in the guidebook. What the team at Plan Tracker have done, and this tool's been available for a little while, and we just want to reshare it with you all. And I'm just going to grab the link while I'm chatting about it. The My Supports, My Choice tool on the Plan Tracker website is a digital version of these questions from the NDIA guidebook. So what they do is they step you through each of the questions. You answer yes or no. So such as, is this support safe? I'm going to answer yes. And then if I'm thinking about, would someone question if this is safe, or I just want to, for my own peace of mind, record some information, I can pop that in the notes field for each of the questions I go through. At the end of it, I just submit it. And what it will do is it collates all of my answers for me, sends me an email record with a date and time stamp. That allows me then to either keep that on my own file for record. I can also share it with my support coordinator or with my plan manager as well. So let me just grab that tool for everyone. I'll pop a quick link in our chat box now for you all. You should see that in just a second. Multitasking at its finest. Here we go. All right, so there's a link in the chat box for that one there. Jump on in. As I said, it automatically delivers through to your inbox, and you'll receive that. That way you've got a nice record of the support and service that you've obviously thought about purchasing at this time, or you may have gone ahead and purchased and you want to record that for yourself. And as Sarah's saying that, yes, the 7 questions are really, really key. So it doesn't matter that just because it's COVID-19, you can throw these questions out the door. That's definitely not a thing. You do need to be considering these 7 questions when purchasing a support or service even now, even while it's COVID-19, while society looks completely different, and a lot of us are in our homes for the majority of the time, unless we're going out for essential supports and services such as exercise or groceries. I know a lot of us have either loved ones or support workers we may have engaged to do that for us as well. So thank you, Marguerite. That's a great tool. Really appreciate the feedback there. And everyone, feel free to jump across. What I might do is, I know we've got a few more questions and some of them are super specific. So for everyone who's asked private questions as well, we will be coming back to you individually. You'll get a personal email from Sarah or myself or the team at Gift. I know Catherine and Nat will be jumping in to answer a lot of these questions with us. But in the interest of everyone's time, I just want to say a huge thank you on behalf of the team here at Plan Tracker and also on behalf of the team at Gift, which is Get Your Future Together in Victoria. We're really, really grateful for everyone who's joined us live or who's watching the webinar replay. We do apologise for any technical issues we've had here. But as always, with live events, we want to get this information across to you as quickly as we can. So we really, really appreciate that. Bronwyn, I will get you that link after this. I can see that you can't see it there, so all good. If anyone attending today wants to brainstorm for your own personal situation, you are welcome to email Sarah. So she's just popped a note up in the chat box. So she'll schedule a call in with you and we're happy to go through that one-on-one. That may be for your personal situation as a participant or the nominee or caring for a loved one. We're also happy to chat with any support coordinators or providers. If you want advice on handling whatever it might be during this time, at Plan Tracker, we're all about capacity building and we're happy to help you. And I know the team at Gift are more than happy to reach out to anyone. If you've got questions, they do a fantastic coaching service as well. So we're all here to help and we want you to know that. What I might just invite, Nat, can you just pop your contact details for Gift up in the chat box? I'm just going to pop a 1-800 number for Plan Tracker in the chat box for everyone. So if you want to get in touch with us, please feel free to give us a call. That is our 1-800 number. Obviously, you can jump on the Plan Tracker website, which is plantracker.com.au. If you'd like to reach out to Nat and Catherine and the team at Gift, you can reach them at Gift, which is gyft.online. That is the URL. You'll find us all on social media as well. You're more than welcome to jump in those groups. We'd love to have you. We will be recording this webinar, so we'll be sending a captioned version of the webinar to everyone over the coming days. So if you've missed anything for any audio issues or the like, please feel free to rewatch the webinar. You can always reach out to us and we'll be hosting it on the Plan Tracker website as well. So thank you so much for everyone who has joined us here today. We really, really appreciate all of your time. Sarah's going to give us a wave. She's got some visual back for the end of it. And Catherine and Nat, thank you so much for being here with us as well. And for everyone, as always, please feel free to join us again on our next webinar. Plan Tracker have a new one coming up next week. Not advertised yet, but it will be very soon. And we look forward to engaging with you. We'll have Elisa James joining us then, who is the founder and managing director of Plan Tracker. So until next time, thank you all so much. We hope you have a healthy and safe week. Please stay indoors, social distance, get to know a really good book during this time, or jump in our online communities and have a conversation with us. We're here to help and we're really excited to be on this journey with you. And we hope we can build resources and relationships to support you through this time and into the future. So on behalf of everyone, thank you so much and we'll see you next time. All right, bye.